Cool. So first, I think if you just introduce yourself, casually, and Sandbox VR, and then we'll get into it.
Yeah, my name is Steve Zhao. I'm the founder CEO of Sandbox VR. We started back in 2016. So what we do is retail-based full-body VR experiences, and we've been scaling through company-owned locations, but also franchising.
Yep. And you've raised like over 100 million from a16z and great investors.
Yeah. So, and I can talk more about the founding story too. So. We've done our Series B 2 years ago, and Dreesen did our Series A and B, and with venture debt, we raised about $100 million. But when we first started about 8 years ago, we only raised about $500,000 from friends and family. Yeah, so just very quickly, when we first started, we didn't want to do retail. We also didn't want to we weren't thinking about franchising. But when we think about VR, what's fundamentally very different than, say, looking at a screen is VR is very fun when you can move around. And people's home are really small. So it wasn't scalable inside people's home if you want to play together in VR. And my background has always been in gaming. I've done PC, I've done mobile. The last thing I want to do was go to retail, but if I cared about the end product, it had to exist outside of home. And because we didn't raise that much money, franchising was our way to pretty much scale the business. And that's pretty much how we started as a company.
Cool. So I guess there's an Instagram influencer called Alex Hormozy, and then he says, like, why will you franchise? Like, either you're an impatient entrepreneur or the business model is not really working and you're trying to offload it to like dumb money, kind of like the franchisee. So I guess for you, why did you choose to franchise? So I get like it's more efficient, but like how did you think of that? How do you think of it working in the long run?
Yeah, so for us, it was the network effect. So what we do is we also create our own games. And the more locations we have, the more we can invest in our content. And the more content we can have and the better titles we can have, the more locations we can have. That was our network effect. And that was our thesis about 5-6 years ago, and it's really playing it out right now. Back then we used to make really like simple zombie games, which was really fun, by the way. But now we get to work with partners like Netflix to bring Squid Game, Rebel Moon, and other top Netflix properties into Sandbox. And our future vision is to bring pretty much all the big Hollywood IPs, creators, and any type of medium and give them a home inside Sandbox.
Cool. So you sort of mentioned like network effects. And in general in franchising, even forgetting network effects, it's always like a cold start problem. Like if you have many franchisees and they're succeeding and they're happy, it's easy to get the next one, the marginal one. So how did you get your first franchisee? Like why did you offer them a deal, a discount on the franchise fee? Like how did you get them to trust you?
We offered them an ownership of the company. So they were early investors. And I think that worked out really well because not only did they have to be successful in their own locations, but they also were looking out for us too. So it's a win-win situation, and that's how we try to build these relationships and how we can win in both ways.
Cool. Yeah, that makes sense. Cool. And I guess, how has it been working with a16z? Because like even for me, when you go and raise funding, it feels like, so PE, they understand the power of royalties and how it's like really high quality earnings and what it means that someone opted to operate it, so they value that, right? But VCs, I guess there's some VCs in here. They seem to be, it's just the top line, like revenue, like it's kind of like simple, So how do you get over that where you recruit franchisees and you only collect a small percentage, like 5%, when like, if you can, I can just raise money and open more locations and I'll look better than you. So how did you get across that with VCs in general, and how has it been working with a16z?
Yeah, I think not all businesses are venture scaled. And that's okay. You can do a bootstrap business and it can generate very good return annually. We were able to convince a16z and also other venture capitalists was because there is an S-curve potential with our business. Now, we might not hit it, but there is that potential. And it has to do with the network effect, which is right, the more content we have, the more locations we have, and it's going to accelerate. But we also have a technology component, which is technology was really just starting out. Like we liken it to the early days of movies when it was like the black and white, right? We can invent sound, we can invent color. And as you kind of create these innovation leap, the experience is going to exponentially. So we're able to really paint that picture that over time, that if this does work out, we can be bigger than the movies. So that was how we sold a16z. And because they saw this as a very long-term vision, they were very patient with us. They're like, okay, build out your technology, build out the infrastructure, and then if you are able to solve that, your economics will follow.
Got it, yeah. So you touched on basically exactly the next thing. Like once again, in my experience, many founders, I think, it's always like month to month, you have to show the growth, you have to be growing like at least 5% week over week. How do you get to the next round? But in your case, you actually waited a while, years, before you kind of opened up franchising in the US at least. So why did you do that? And yeah, so I guess why did you wait?
Yeah, for us, it was a couple of reasons. Certainly, COVID didn't help. It created a big reset, probably for us and other franchisors as well. But we also had to wait because one of the biggest pushback that we've gotten is, at least for ours, is you're new. We don't know if VR is going to be a fluke or not. So a lot of franchisees, they're putting their life savings into your business. So it's very important there's historical. So we wanted to build about 3 years of historical so we can show same-store sale growing year over year to convince franchisees. Just looking at last year, we've been able to show that an average US Sandbox can make about $2 million per year and have about a 41% margin for a corporate location. So like, okay, these are numbers. We think we can go toe-to-toe with McDonald's. And we can do that, then we can be a good franchise business.
Cool. So in the long run, so one thing I tend to think of is, so there is, like if you think of like tech investing versus value investing like Warren Buffett, so tech investing or growth investing is kind of like why now? Like Sequoia will say why now? But if you think of Warren Buffett, he's saying like why forever? And I think like our view is like franchisees, as you said, they're putting their life savings, and it's more like unit economics. They're buying one location. Kind of like as you're adding additional locations, sure, I get the network effect. It might make them marginally better, but really they care about their unit economics. Versus your investors, VCs, they care about just overall how big is it. So how do you think you're going to be able to balance that if you become public traded company? How are you going to balance like what your VCs need versus what franchisees care about?
So in the early days, I always believed that it's all about top lines, right? You've seen stories about Uber, WeWork, right? Top line growth, sacrifice your unit economics. No longer the case. So in order for us to be successful, we have to make sure the franchisees are successful because we get a royalty from that. And as we get more royalty, it makes the companies more successful. So everything is really aligned now. So everything that we do, we want to make sure it starts from the bottom up.
Cool. Awesome. So I guess, finally, if anyone that's thinking, okay, I want to build a tech company, I want to build a startup, I actually want to raise VC, but I want to do it with a franchise model. So I think you're one of the most successful founders that have done that so far. So what advice do you have for them?
I think when I think about franchising and maybe product development in general is not only the product creation of itself, but also really think deeply about the distribution, right? When you think about franchising, the underlying process is replication. It's like how do you replicate your product and make sure it's standardized, but also how do you replicate your distribution? And for us, it's because we use a lot of digital marketing and people that come to our location, they get these videos. So we can show like sort of a word of mouth generation that creates virality. And it works not just in the US, but it works across a lot of the other countries as well because it's through social media. So that was something that really helped us out when we pitched to VC. And obviously it also helped us out when we pitched to franchisees.
Awesome. So thank you very much. Thank you for sharing your time.
Thank you for having me.
Cool. Awesome.